Good and Erev Shabbos. Today is Friday. Baruch Hashem. Another week is in the books. Today we are starting Pesachim. Baruch Hashem. We did 24 prakim of Shabbos and 10 prakim of Erev. That's 34 prakim so far in Moed. And we are now starting Pesachim, which is another 10 prakim. And when we finish Pesachim in about 2 weeks, we're going to be done with half of Seder Moed, which is very cool. Goes to 88 prakim in Seder Moed, and we are at Perek 35 right now. Today's shiur is dedicated to Eli Nishmas Michal Yosef and Nachum David, whose Petira and Levaya were yesterday. And the family is now sitting Shiva for the week. May his neshama have an aliyah, and may his Yehoshua for God's Klal Yisrael. And the shiur is also dedicated Lila Nishmas Aaron Nachman and Simcha Kohen, Ushul Mordechai ben Shepsel, Brachas Star Shmuel Leib, Binah Moshe ben Yosef. May the neshamas all have an aliyah. And Refuah Shlema for Adasar Bas Leah Chana Pesel Bas Yente Yisrael ben Rachel Leah Rachel Bas Pesel Zelda Aram Yitzchak ben Rishon Chaya Bas Dova Bela Refuah Shlema B'Sol Shar Chol Yisrael. And as a schus for Vita Arab Beget Lamasha for him and his God's Mishpacha Shefer Bracha Vatzlacha. Okay, Pesachim starts off. First of all, why is it called Pesachim? There, there's Pesach. We call Rosh Hashanah, we call Shabbos, and we call what else we call it? Sukkah, right? So what's this lashon of Pesachim, the plural? So it's calling it Pesach. Called Pesach Pesach. What are we doing Pesachim for? So the name actually comes from the Gaonim, as it was divided into two sections. One was called Pesach Rishon, and one was Pesach Sheni. Not to be confused with the dates on the calendar of the 14th of Nissan, which is Pesach Rishon, and the 14th of Iyar, which is Pesach Sheni. Not to be confused with that, but rather it was divided into two sections, where the first section, known as Pesach Rishon, is the first four prakim and the 10th Perek, which deals with all the halachas that are applicable even nowadays. Mainly the issur of chametz and the requirement to eat matzah. And Pesach Sheni, which is prakim Hey through Tes, refers to, we're specifically dealing with the halachas of the Korban Pesach, which is not Nageh B'zman Hazeh, or technically it could be if we knew what the Makam Mizbeach was, but we don't. So we don't. That's why it's divided into two, whereas Sukkah and Shabbos is just one name because it's all Nogea. The Torah, there's 24 mitzvahs that relate to Pesach. That's more than any other mitzvah from the Torah, for any other yontif or any other mitzvah. With the 24 mitzvahs that are unique to Pesach, eight of them concern chametz, matzah, and telling and Sipur. I tell you over the story from Sipur Mitzrayim, and 16 of them concern the Korban Pesach. So, and obviously we have the Hilchos chametz and matzah, destroying chametz, eating chametz, and having hana from chametz over Pesach, and by matzah, you finally get possessing it on Pesach, and bittul. I mean, mitzvah matzah. We have the Korban Pesach, and obviously the main focus of Pesachim is on the night of the Seder, Pesach by Nacht, Pesach night, where there's a special mitzvah to tell over the story to your children, and we're going to talk about the mitzvah d'oraisa of eating matzah b'zman hazeh, and whether maror is d'rabanan or d'oraisa. And yeah, and even though it's winter still in New York, and in the northern hemisphere it's winter and it's cold, but we're learning about Pesach, Rosh Hashem. It's going to give us warm feelings, and we're in Shovavim now. Actually, we're starting Shovavim, and it's all about the parshas that lead up to Yitzie Mitzrayim. So it's very cool that we're starting with Pesachim during Shovavim, and maybe be zoche that through our learning Pesachim, we will be zoche to actually bring the Korban Pesach this year in the Beis Hamikdash, in the third Beis Hamikdash, on the Har Bayis, which Hashem will be this year at its proper time. Okay, Perek Aleph begins with the first chiyuv of Pesach, which is bir chametz, eliminating chametz. The pasuk says, "Ach b'yom harishon tashbisu seor yibatechem." Then the first day you shall eliminate leaven from your houses. The Chachamim teaches that the first day refers to the day before Pesach, which is the 14th of Nissan, not the 15th of Nissan. And this has to take place before midday because the korban is brought after chatzos, and destroying chametz has to be done before the occurrence of korban. During Raisa, you only need to do bittul, where you say we nullify verbally. The Chacham came along and said, no, you have to take action. You actually have to destroy it. You have to burn it. You have to physically eradicate it. So we're going to jump into this now. Or Perek Aleph, Mishnah Aleph, Pesachim Pesachim, or La Ba'asar Bodkines Chametz Lo'or Haner. On the night of the 14th of Nissan, which is 24 hours before the Seder, we search for chametz by the light of a candle. But if there's any chametz in our possession, we will find it and remove it. We are required to use a candle or modern day flashlight because it is effective for searching. If you ever lost in the woods, they use flashlights and these candles to try to find something, find the person. So that's use a candle. You're not to the mitzvah of just using the regular lights from the room because you need to get into the nooks and crannies. Anyways, any place into which chametz is not usually brought during the year, meaning, for example, a wine cellar where barrels of wine are stored, does not require searching. If you have a place that's kept chametz free the whole year, then you don't need to bring any chametz. They don't need to search for chametz there. If so, why did the Chachamim say that we must search for chametz between the barrels and 2 rows in the wine cellar? The wine cellar had lots and lots of barrels. The Chachamim said you only need to search in the first 2 rows. Why? The answer is that the Chachamim we're speaking of a place in which chametz is usually brought. In a wine cellar, from where wine is taken to serve at a meal, it's very likely that people would go into the wine cellar to the barrels or to the shelves and holding food, leave it there. You're eating a piece of cake, or you're eating some bread or a ball of cholent or kugel, and you're going into the wine cellar to refill the pitcher and to get another bottle and then you put your food down on the shelf. You take out the wine, it smells good. You take a sip, and you go out to the room and you left your wine behind. You left your food behind. So you got to find it. So there's a machlokas how to define the 2 rows in the wine cellar. Beis Shammai says, "Stay shuros alcohol p'nei hamartiv." We must search the 2 layers of barrels that cover the entire surface of the stack in the wine cellar. Meaning it's the vertical layer that goes from the floor to the ceiling, and then it's the top layer from front to back. So it looks like kind of like this, right? You from left to right, then you have up and down. But Beiselo says, we need to search only the two outer rows that are the highest, that are that that the the two highest rows of barrels in the vertical layer that faces the entrance, meaning that they're at arm's length. They're not too high. They're not too low. They're right there, and those are the barrels that people are taking from to use right then. They're not going to extra tircha to take from the back. They're taking from what's available in front of them. Mishnah Bays. So let's say you search the place of chametz already, and you could have it could happen that a weasel or some other small rodent or animal could drag chametz there from a place that has not yet been searched. So in order to prevent this, you'd have to make sure that both places are searched at the same time, which is not really so practical. But we're not required to do that, as Mishnah Beis will explain. We are not obligated to be concerned that a weasel may have dragged chametz from a house that was not searched to a house that was searched, or within one house from a place that was not searched to a place that was searched. If so, if we would be required and concerned for those possibilities, then we would also have to be concerned that they might have dragged chametz from a courtyard to another courtyard, one that was searched to another courtyard that was searched, and even from a town to a town, the town that was not searched to a town that was. We just finished discussing from Erev about the chatzerim. Where you put the Erev, where so you have to be choshen. Maybe the guy next door, Yehoshua came from his property into my property, or whatever. That's and you go crazy from that. So there'd be no end to the matter. It would be totally overwhelming and paralyzing, and people wouldn't be able to cope. So the Chachamim did not require us to consider this possibility at all, even within the one house or one courtyard. So now Mishnah Gimel talks about what you should do if you did not make the Medika, the search for chametz, at the proper time, meaning the night of the 14th. Rabbi Yehuda Omer, this is Mishnah Gimel. Rabbi Yehuda says, Botkin or Abarasar, you must search for chametz on the night of the 14th of Nissan. And also, but if you miss that time, you must search in the morning of the 14th. The first thing in the morning. And if you miss that time, then he must search during the time that we dispose of our chametz, which is by the 6th hour of the day. And if at the end of that hour, when chametz becomes also deraisa, he is still not searched, he should not search at all, because he might unthinkably eat the chametz that he finds, which would be a issa deraisa. The Chachamim say, lo badek or avaras, if he did not search on the 14th by night, yivdog but then he must search in the daytime of the 14th. Lo badek ba'abasar, if he did not search in the daytime of the 14th, yivdog b'shel chameled, then he must search during the festival. Lo badek b'shel chameled, and if he did not search during Chol Moed, then he must search for chametz after Pesach is over. Why on earth would you have to search for chametz after Pesach is over? So the answer is that because chametz that is a possession of a Jew during Pesach is aser, derabanan, after Pesach, and therefore you still have to get rid of it. So you have to search for it. If the person did not accomplish searching for it beforehand, he still has to search for it and destroy it after Yontif. Baruch Hashem, I can say I've never had the situation before. We always search for chametz the night of the 14th, and when it was Friday night, you do it earlier as per halacha. Whatever chametz one leaves over to eat after the search, once you put it in a private, secure place, so that he will not lose any of the chametz that he found, have to search for it all over again. It's very common where you're searching for chametz the night before, but you're still allowed to eat chametz until the morning after. Still have breakfast in the morning, and so you already put aside what you're going to dispose of, but you still have some food for the morning. So you have to be very careful to make sure that what was found for burning is going to be is accounted for and it's secure until the morning. And then you have to make sure that what you're going to eat the following morning before this man is also put away safely so that it doesn't get dragged all over the house and have to search again. Okay. Mishnah Daled. According to Torah law, we can eat and have benefit from chametz on Erev Pesach until midday, until chatzos, after which even ownership of chametz is usher and we must dispose of it. But the Chachamim made it earlier. Rabbi Meir says, Ochlin kol chamesh, we can eat chametz the entire 5th hour, meaning that al pi derabanan the chametz becomes usher at the end of the 5th hour. Like for example, if chatzos is 12 o'clock, so this is at 11 o'clock. V'sorfim b'tchiyah sheish, and we burn it at the beginning of the 6th hour. So 11 o'clock is the end of the 5th. So according to Rabbi Meir, you would burn it at the beginning of the 6th, which is 11 o'clock. And chatzos is at the end of the 6th hour. Although chametz is mitzvah d'oraisa until chatzos, the Chachamim were concerned that people might miscalculate the time and therefore miss out. So therefore they made it earlier, kind of like it says by Moshe Rabbeinu, it says kachatzos alive, like around midnight. Why didn't Hashem say midnight? Bachatzos. So Magas Bechoros was bachatzos, but in order not to confuse anybody and not to have anyone say, "Oh, the clock is wrong," so Hashem said kachatzos. So to over here by chametz, they want to be extra careful and set up precautions so that you don't come to the Isser, the race. Rabbi Yehuda says, Ochlin kol arba, we can eat chametz the entire 4th hour, meaning that the chametz is only allowed to the end of the 4th hour, which is, let's say, till 10 o'clock. We tolin kol chamesh, and we suspend it the entire 5th hour, let's say from 10 to 11. Meaning that you can't eat it, but you're not required to burn it yet. And we burn it at the beginning of the 6th hour. According to Yehuda, the Issa Derabana of the Avin Chametz takes effect 2 hours before the Doraisa deadline, because it's easy. It's easier to get confused for an hour. 2 hours is more of an issue. Such a mistake is possible only on a cloudy day when the sun's not visible, but people can't tell the time from the position of the sun and the sky. But you were still able to have benefit from it during those 2 hours. Mishnah Hey. Okay. Rabbi Yehuda said first, stay chalos shel toda pesulos, 2 puzzle loaves of chametz loaves. Makar and toda were taken the morning before Pesach. We know that toda had 40 loaves of bread. I believe 30 of them were there were four types, 10 of each loaf, I believe. Well, they're not, some of them were chametz and some of them were were not chametz. Okay, I think it was 10 and 30 or 20 and 20. I don't know the exact number, but some of those loaves were chametz loaves and some of them were not chametz loaves. So um, they would take two of those loaves, and they place them on the roof over the row of benches on the hard bias as a simon for people to see. Obviously this wasn't in the actual chutzner of the Beis Hamikdash; no one's allowed to sit. But on the hard bias outside of the actual Beis Hamikdash, there were benches for people to sit on, and they were covered, as protection from the rain. So they would put these on the roof over the bench. It's kind of like a bus stop. You have like the bench, and then you have like the shell around it with the roof. So Ko's manchimunachos, as long as both loaves were, were were on top of the roof over there, all the people knew that they could still eat chametz. Nitla achas tolen. When one loaf was removed at the beginning of the fifth hour, then then people knew that they must stop eating chametz. Lo ochlim lo sarfin, which means that they couldn't eat it, but they're not required to burn it yet. Nitlu shtehen, when both loaves were removed at the end of the zman, is chilu kol am sarfin. Then all the people knew that they must start burning the chametz and get rid of it because now's the time. And Galileo says chulin nechalim kol arba, that ordinary non-kodesh chametz may be eaten the entire fifth hour and not later. With truma kol chamesh, however, chametz that is truma may be eaten the entire fifth hour, which is one more hour, because truma may not be destroyed unless absolutely necessary. Now, if you burn it too early, so then you have a law of burning truma. The sarafim b'tzchiyah and we must burn all chametz, truma or not, at the beginning of the sixth hour, which in this case was like 11 o'clock. Okay, Mishnah Vav is not about Pesach itself. It is added as an introduction to the next Mishnah regarding burning truma, that is chametz and Erev Pesach. So there's an Isser to cause truma or kachim to become tamei. Those of you learning Zvachim are learning about kachim now. We're finishing up Zvachim from Daf Yomi in a couple of days. The Mishnah Vav discusses whether it's mutter to add greater levels of truma to truma or kachim that are already somewhat tamei. There's nothing to do with Pesach itself, but it's more hilchos truma. Rabbi Chanina Skana Kohanim Omer Rabbi Chanina, the administrator of the Kohanim, says the Skan was the deputy Kohen Gadol, serving in the Kohen Gadol's place when he was unavailable. He's also in charge of all the other Kohanim, as we're going to learn more when we get to Yuma. So Miyamehem Shal Kohanim, and all the days of the Kohanim, Lo Nimnum, a list of his Basar Shenitma Bevadatuma. They did not refrain from burning meat from karbanos that had become tamei by touching a secondary source of tumah, thereby making it a shlishi. Together with other meat from kachim that became tamei by touching an av of tumah, thereby making it into a rishon. So even though by burning the two pieces of meat together, they were adding a greater level of tumah to the tumah of the first piece, because the first piece was a shlishi, and the second piece was a rishon. So now you're elevating the shlishi to the Rishon, which is a stronger level of Tumah. Nevertheless, the Kohanim did not refrain from burning such of these things together. So we see that even though it's also to cause Tumah to Kachim, once it's tamei, it is permitted to make it more tamei, since it's no longer going to eat it in any case, but it's going to be burned on account of its tumah. So it's not a big deal. Hosi Rabbi Akiva, Rabbi Akiva went further and said, Mayhem, Shal Kohanim, and all the days of the Kohanim, Lo Nindu, Milahad, Likas, Shemin, Shenifsal, B'Tful Yom. They did not refrain from burning oil of truma that had become disqualified, becoming in contact with the Tful Yom. A Tful Yom, as you remember, is someone who went to the mikveh on the day of purification, but it's not finished until he is Erev Shemesh. Right. So he went to the mikveh that day, but his purification is not totally finished until nightfall, when it gets dark. So between the time they went to the mikveh and until Sisal he's called a Tful Yom, and he cannot eat truma or kachim until the nightfall, which is why we discussed this in the beginning of Brachos. The first Mishnah of Brachos was that the time for Shema is the same time that the Kohanim went to go eat their truma, because they were tamei and they became tahor, and they went to the mikveh. And now it's after Sisal and now they can go eat the truma finally, for having finished their purification process. That's what we learned back in Brachos. Anyways, so they didn't refrain from bringing oil of truma that had become disqualified by coming in contact with the Tful Yom. In a metal lamp that became tamei from something that had become tamei from a corpse, which then makes the lamp into an avatum. So even though by doing so they were adding a greater level of tumah to the oil's previous level of tumah. After coming in contact with the Tful Yom, the oil had carried only a shlishi level of tumah, whereas upon coming into contact with the lamp, it becomes a rishon. So we see from this, although it is also to cause tumah to truma, it is possible to make a rishon out of truma that previously had been only a shlishi, since the truma is in any case being burned on account of its tumah. Rabbi Akiva's teaching is more lenient than Rabbi Chanina's, whereas Rabbi Chanina's testimony taught only that it is mutter to raise the level of tumah 1 degree by making a sheni out of something that had been a shlishi. Rabbi Akiva's testimony demonstrates that it is mutter even to raise the level of tumah 2 degrees by making a rishon out of something that was previously a shlishi. So that's more of a kula. And the last Mishnah for today, Mishnah Zion. Amar Rabbi Meir says, "Midday Lamanu." We may learn from the words of Rabbi Chanina, Rabbi Akiva in the previous Mishnah. Shesorfin truma tahora ima tameya b'Pesach. When we burn truma, that is chametz, during the 6th hour of Erev Pesach, we are permitted to burn truma that is tahor together with truma that is tamei, even though this will cause the truma that is tahor to become tamei. So just as we learned previously that when we burn truma and kachim that are tamei, we may add additional levels of tumah to when they are burned, because they are no longer fit to be eaten in any case. It must be burned. So too, we may cause truma that must be burned because it is chametz to become tamei as well. Since it can no longer be eaten, it must be destroyed. There's no iser to make it more tamei, to make it tamei to begin with. Although Yossi applied to Meir, this case of truma that is chametz during the 6th hour of Erev Pesach is not comparable to the cases of truma that is tamei in the previous Mishnah. Regarding the meat from Rabbi Chanina's testimony as well as the oil from Akiva's testimony were tamei on the deraisa level, and were therefore subject to be burned under halacha deraisa. Therefore, you cannot do anything significant. You're not doing anything significant by adding another level of tumah to that. However, the Isser of eating chametz during the 6th hour of Erev Pesach is only derabanan, while causing the truma to become tamei makes it a innocent deraisa, and therefore it's a greater loss of function and is therefore also to do. Rabbi Yossi defends his view by challenging the rulings of earlier Chachamim. There was a dispute whether between Eliezer and Rabbi Yehoshua regarding a different case of burning two types of truma that are chametz together on Erev Pesach. So now we're going to explain what we're talking about. Both Rabbi Eliezer and Rabbi Yehoshua disagreed concerning burning truma that is chametz on Erev Pesach. They would agree that when we burn truma that is chametz during the 6th hour of Erev Pesach, we must burn this one, that the one that's tamei by itself, and that one, the truma that's tahor by itself, so as not to cause the tahor truma to become tamei. Amen. With what did they disagree? Alatulia tameya. They disagree whether burning truma that which is a suffix, whether it is or not, together with truma that's definitely tamei during the 6 hours. Since Rabbi Eliezer, in this case, Rabbi Eliezer says, Tisarev zula asma. Each one must be burned separately so as to avoid the possibility of causing tuma to the truma that might be tahor. Yehoshua says, Shtei and ka'achas, they may both be burned together, and there's no issue. Okay, that is Perek Aleph. Thank you for joining us. We will see you on Sunday morning as we continue with Perek Beis of Pesachim. Have a wonderful Shabbos. Stay warm and safe.